Hello my friends, hello everyone, welcome back to another episode. I'm very excited about today. I'm going to be doing a couple quick projects on the Jeep. So the garage isn't 100% done, it's not completely outfitted with shelving and it's not organized, none of that yet, but I'm on a time frame. I've got to get the Jeep drivable in a week to take it down to have a VIN inspection so it can get re-registered. So we got to get it driving, we have to do two things today. First and foremost, fuel injector O-rings. There's 12 of these. I did these about 4 months ago with my buddy Payne. And when I pulled this Jeep in here, oh my gosh, 2 of those injectors are shooting gas everywhere. So I'm just gonna redo them all. I'm not sure what happened, if it's just that dry here that they're gone. Maybe it's because it wasn't being run. And after that, we've got this bad boy here. So this is a reman, that's remanufactured. This is a power steering pump with a reservoir. I'm gonna replace this whole thing because mine is leaking like a sieve. It's completely empty. I had to manually turn the wheel to get this thing in here. So, new power steering pump, new injector O-rings, and she'll be drivable again. First things first, I'm gonna disconnect my battery. Actually, I'm gonna take the ground off. And that is because each of these injectors are electronically controlled. It does have a little plug on here. So anytime I'm touching wires or doing anything, I unplug the ground on my battery. So in order to get your injectors out to replace the 2 O-rings on each one, you're gonna use this quick disconnect here. My little tab is down on the bottom. That's your pressure regulator. So we're gonna pop that out. And then there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 bolts on this metal fuel rail. And then that whole thing lifts out with the injectors. Sometimes the injectors will be stuck in the manifold, and then we can replace those. Some tips I have learned from the first time doing this. This little cap here on the front of the fuel rail, take that off. It's gonna expose a little Schrader valve. We're gonna press on that, and we're gonna have some shop towels, and we're gonna release the pressure from the fuel in this line, if there is any left because my O-rings are leaking. You're gonna disconnect this line that goes into your fuel pressure regulator. You're gonna disconnect this temperature sensor from the thermostat. All these wires are just in the way from getting that whole rail out. I'm also gonna take my throttle cable right here, take this guy out of the way, and then I'm gonna take my main fuel hose out, and that has a fresh quick disconnect. So I'm just gonna take all this stuff out of the way, make sure you remember where everything goes, and then this whole rail will come out. Little tooth from a wrench fits this very nicely. Yep, no pressure left. The O-rings have let all the pressure out, all the excess fuel, which is also why it's kind of hard to start this thing up. It's got to get all fresh fuel into that line. So here we go. All right, let's get this fuel line out. There you go, that's loose. Yeah, no fuel at all. There's no fuel left in there. So we'll vacuum plug off. The plugs that are on the injectors have these fun little metal tabs. So get yourself a tiny flathead screwdriver. You'll see how you can work it in there. And you're just gonna twist to open that up and then pull this off. There you go, that's what you want. And that just pops off. I'll clean all that up, get some dielectric grease in there when I put this back together. Throttle cable, this whole mechanism, get this out of the way to get this rail up. I'm gonna take this where the cable attaches, pull back, it'll snap right off. There you go, snaps off like that. This here, it's got 2 tabs, squeeze them. Any pliers will do. As you're squeezing, wiggle back, and that pops off. Now your cable's free and out of the way. Tuck you up here. Those shouldn't be too bad, plenty of room to work around all this stuff. There you go, you can see I've got these free. Got this fuel line here free. We're almost there. Grab this guy. This is your main fuel line that comes in. If you've got a quick disconnect, grab that guy. There is gas in there for me. Keep that pointed upright. These guys, right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. That one's a pain to get to. 13mm socket. Break those free with an impact. Let's see if I can get this bad boy. Oh yeah, piece of cake. Now this is all completely loose. Nothing but the injectors are holding that on. And just wiggle. Boom. Yeah, as you can see, just leaving this back one connected, it's so hard to get to. The rail is out and loose, and now I have access to this, so let's pull this guy off. This is your fuel rail. Make sure you have a towel ready. You're gonna have residual gas in there, no big deal. Here you have it. This is your fuel rail. That's your regulator there. The 6 injectors. I took one out to help get this rail out. You just finagle this thing until it pops out. this is what we need. Those are the injectors. I'm gonna replace all 12 of those O-rings on there. There's one on each side of the injector, but it's not that simple for me, of course. I've got some things I've been wanting to do here. This is disgusting. That is a bunch of residual grime and stuff from before I replaced this valve cover. So I'm gonna get in there and clean that. You can see I used some towels and plugged up each of the injector holes, and we're gonna clean this up, degrease it. In addition, my wiring harness came like this in this Jeep, and there's nothing left. This stuff is so brittle and it's making a mess. I picked up the entire wire harness holder unit. These things are awesome. You can find them at your junkyard, and that just mounts on the bolts for that valve cover, and that'll clean up all that wiring harness and keep it out of the way, and we won't have any of this brittle plastic. Oh yeah, look at that. You can see all the dirty over here, but that's what we want to see. All right, let's get this old wire loom out of here. We'll put that wire holder on, get this back together with new O-rings on the injectors. Oh my gosh, this stuff is such a mess. And I could just snap those. Everything is so brittle. This is long overdue. Oh my gosh, everything's crumbling apart. And this guy just presses down onto these manifold bolts. Or I guess that would be the head. Took all that disgusting loom off, and now I'm just gonna stuff all this wiring into this holder. We're almost done with this. This is freaking awesome. I have been procrastinating this horrible project for so long, but I cannot stand the wire loom and zip ties anymore. Oh, look at that. And all the wire had like memory from where it was supposed to go once it was all broken free of the zip ties. Just amazing. That is what your harness should look like. If you do find yourself in absolute need to do some wire loom, like for this bit of all this harness over here, get some flame retardant wire loom that can take the heat. So I'm gonna put this on there now, and hey look, the red, it matches. I couldn't help myself. I started cleaning and I couldn't. So I started cleaning up all these harnesses. Look at it, look how pretty. And as I started making my way around, I needed to get the rest of this horrible crumbling loom out. So I took my air box out. Okay, where was I? All right, back to the fuel rail. We did all this for these O-rings. So once you have your fuel rail off, you just have little tabs here on the injectors. You're gonna spread them and pop this right off. No big deal, they're really not hard to get off. Right there, just like that. That's it, that is your injector. I'm gonna clean all of this up. There's O-ring number 1, O-ring number 2. This is the last injector, and you can see I just kind of grab that O-ring and you pull that guy off. This is the injector with no O-rings on either side, and I'm just gonna get this all cleaned and degreased. This here is a silicone-based grease, so it's the best thing to use for O-rings. Silicone doesn't affect the rubber in any way. I take a little dab of that, and I just kind of work it in my fingers just to lubricate that O-ring. And now I'm just gonna pop this right back on here. Just like that. Want to hit the end here. You don't want any silicone grease where the fuel needs to go. That is a very snug fit, and you want to be careful because you can completely pinch these O-rings in here. Check this out. And you want to gently do circular motions and work the O-ring into its spot, just like that. If you have to fight with it more than that, you're pinching the O-ring and you got to stop, start over. Take my little snap ring here. There you go. We are ready to reinstall the whole fuel rail with all the injectors nice and clean with fresh O-rings. Now for the super fun part. Probably the hardest part of this entire process is to fight simultaneously with every single wire under the engine bay and every hose. We're gonna slide this back in from whence it came. Be careful, the same thing applies to the other O-rings. Do not pinch them. Okay, my friends, I think that's it. From here, reconnect all of your injector wires. I'm gonna reattach all my vacuum lines, reattach my TPS, my temperature sensor, everything. I put my air box back in. That's right, that got a coating of back to black. Now it's time to just button everything up. Make sure you don't forget anything. I'm gonna tighten up my coolant hose here. Make sure all these lines are back on. Plug in your temp sensor. Make sure all these little guys are back on. TPS is good. My vacuum line from my manifold to my pressure regulator. Let me hook my throttle back up. I think that's the last part I have. And remember, that's just this bracket here. It's right next to the throttle. It has 3 bolts. That's a T25 Torx. And I've made a vow to myself, whenever I take machine bolts off and put them back on, I'm going to put a dab of thread locker. And this sort of thing just keeps them tight. You don't have to over torque them. It also prevents corrosion. I found that on like my first try. That was awesome. Here we go. I'm very excited. This was a huge project for today. It's because I got sidetracked. You know, when you have everything pulled apart, there's no better time to clean and maintenance the rest of the parts. Okay, we're ready to fire up. That looks really good. All right, this is my brother. He hates being on camera. I'm gonna fire it up and let me know, and just give me if it starts spewing fuel everywhere. Not a drop. Not a drop? I don't see any drops anywhere. I don't either. Oh, we got smoke. You will. Probably from my degreaser. Wow, guys, it looks really good. I smell stinky old Jeep. I don't smell any gas. That looks so good. Look how clean this is. Okay, my friends, I know I said I was gonna do 2 things. I was gonna do that pump and this, but you know, it's too easy to get in there and clean, and I got tied up most of the day getting that all clean and all those wires taken care of. It's a huge step though. I'm really happy. It doesn't leak, so the fuel is taken care of. I'm gonna call it a night there though. Thanks for hanging out with me on iNawrocki, and I'll see you next time.